So what do Teemu Pukki, Max Meyer and Dan Burn all have in common? All three of them had goals disallowed for marginal offsides because of VAR. All of which, I believe the linesman got spot on, and all of which were chalked off for no reason other than just, I don't know, they're trying to fill a quota for offside calls or something. I don't even know what's going on. So I'm going to be talking about VAR today, as you've probably guessed by the title and by the way I've started this video. I've been wanting to do this video for weeks, but after every home match I go to, I put it off and I'm like, no, it's fine. It'll get better. And then next home match, another VAR call, and then next match, another VAR call. And today I came across a video where they were in the A-League in Australia, which Premier League is a lot better quality, and it's a lot more, I mean, I suppose quality is subjective, but it's a much more prestigious league than the A-League, and I will actually put a link to that in the description as well. And it's a much more prestigious league, and yet we can't seem to get it right with VAR. In the A-League, they've got it right. They have it, so every league has the pitch side monitors there, and yet in Premier League, for some reason, they're just not being used, and I don't know why. And it's really frustrating because I would rather them get the calls right if they're going to have VAR. Now, when they announced VAR, I was so looking forward to it, and I was all for it, and I could not wait because I was like, it's going to even things out. Norwich are going to start getting more decisions go our way, but in fact, all it's done is the referees are getting the decisions right, and then it's being overturned by VAR, and I can't work it out. I can't work out why some of these decisions are being overturned. So we'll use the example of Teemu Pukki. Now, at the moment that at the moment the ball was played, it wasn't even at this point. The point I'm showing you now. So this is a screenshot from the offside call, and at this point he is clearly level or behind. He's clearly not in front of the defender. I think it was Alderweireld, and yet that gets overturned. Now, for me, in the case of a close offside call, where it's this close, if you feel like you need to draw the lines, for me, you have to just give it as onside. When you're training up a linesman, and it's the same thing here with Wilfried Zaha, and the same thing with, I'm not actually sure who that was who was offside, but when you're training a linesman, you get told, or they tell the linesman, if it's not clearly offside, give the advantage to the striker. That's what they get told in training. So why is it that VAR, all of a sudden now, there is no advantage to the striker? If it's level, it's offside. Now, the official line that came through to Sky from VAR was that Teemu Pukki was given offside because he had come back from an offside position, so therefore he was offside. Now, the official ruling is that it is the moment the ball leaves the foot of the striker. Now, leaves the foot of the pass. And yet, he's come back into an onside position here, and he's still given offside. Now, this one is, I mean, the other two that happened yesterday were just as ridiculous. I don't even know, obviously this one you can see that the ball is about to leave his foot. And I mean, can you really give that offside? For starters, look at the lines. Look, how is that? I'll probably put a circle around it as well, but how is that allowed in a game? In the best league in the world, and we can't even calibrate the lines without them having a bend in them. All the technology, you can use all the technology in the world, but if it's not used correctly, this right here is not a straight line. And Crystal Palace should have won that one. That should have been 2-1. Bear in mind, Norwich should have been 2-0 up against Tottenham if Teemu Pukki's goal was allowed to stand. At that point, we could probably go on to win that game. Although it is Norwich, so we probably still concede twice, but at least we have that 2-goal lead. That, for me, I don't see in what world they've looked at that, zoomed in on that, and thought, that line's definitely straight. And there was an incident earlier in the season where they drew a line, saw that he was onside, and then they decided to erase that line, draw it again, and then this time they go, oh yeah, he's offside. I can't remember who that was for or who that was against. But it can't be allowed to happen, because teams are being cost points, managers are going to be sacked because of it, fans are so impatient. I now feel, when I look at a match, when I see an incident, I look at it, and I know I've got it right more times from one look than VAR has from multiple replays. And I find as well, and this is the really frustrating thing, when you see a decision go against somebody like Man City the other day, so I'll use the example of the Man City Wolves game. Man City had a penalty that wasn't given to them, and it took them 3 minutes to look at the replay so that they could overturn it. Because all that they wanted to do there, they was looking to overturn that. So they spent 3 minutes looking, managed to overturn it in the end. And they didn't even get it right. In my opinion, if you're getting your foot stamped on, you aren't then going to go up. Surely you would just go straight down. So for me, as much as there was contact, Mahrez has bought that one. 100% Mahrez bought that one. It's a shame, but that's the kind of the world we live in with football now, is if you don't go down in some way, you're not going to get it. And if he would have just gone straight down, yeah, penalty. But for me, he's proven there by jumping up in the air that he could stay on his feet. So for me, that is 100% a dive, and he's got to be booked for a dive on that one for me. And then a couple of minutes later, Wolves, a couple of minutes later, in the second half, I think it was, so that was in the first half. In the second half, Wolves had 2 players fouled, and the referee didn't give it, and they literally spent 30 seconds looking at each of them. Despite the fact that they spent 3 minutes looking at the Man City one, they then go on to spend a minute looking at 2 incidents. Now, I don't get how that's fair, and I remember it happened. So I tend to find whenever they're looking to overturn it, whenever they want to overturn it, they will spend much longer looking at it than otherwise. So the example, Manchester United got given 2 penalties against Norwich, and both of them were not given by the referee originally, and admittedly the second one was definitely a penalty, but the first one was not a penalty. For me, Dan James initiates the contact and then goes down, and they spent a good 2 or 3 minutes looking at that one, and I tend to find whenever they spend a while looking at them, that's because they are looking to overturn it. They're not looking at it objectively and going, is that or isn't it? Because at the end of the day, if it's clear and obvious, and this is how I would fix it, if it's clear and obvious, you should be able to tell by looking at 3 replays. You get 3 replays, 30 seconds. If it's not clear and obvious, you can either tell the referee you're not unsure to keep the decision, or tell him to go and look at the pitch side monitor, because the pitch side monitors are there, and this is what I'm on about with the A-League one, so back to that one. He tells the referee to go look at the pitch side monitor. The referee, so I think he says to the referee, he goes, I think you've got that one wrong, go and take a look for yourself. The referee then goes over, they've got the microphone, so people who are watching on TV can hear it. I think they might have actually added that in later though, but you can hear them explaining it, and for me that's the way forward. For one, they have to be able to have a microphone at the stadium so that the referee can say, I'm looking at a VAR decision, this is what I've seen, like they do in rugby. In rugby, they will say, try on field, go to the pitch side review, or whatever it is that they say. So they let people know that they've made the decision. For example, it would be with the Timu Pukki goal yesterday. So it would be goal given, pitch side, offside review, and then it would be they would have to prove that he's offside. And here's the thing with the Timu Pukki one, you can't see him. Okay, so here's the thing as well, and there's so many different layers to this, so I'm just going to be going off on tangents all the time. I already have done loads of times. You cannot see from there the angle, who's in front and who's behind. For me, he looks like he's level at best, level at worst. I don't know, whichever way. Like he's onside basically. He's either level or he's behind. To another person, he might look like he's slightly in front. From that angle, you cannot tell, and yet the linesman's looked at that and gone. Oh, not the linesman. VAR official has looked at that. Linesman's got it right, by the way. Linesman kept his flag down. Linesman was actually that particular one had a very good game. He called not Son. He called the Dele Alli one right. He called this one right, and both of them. I mean, the Dele Alli one was more obvious than this one, but he's called this one right, and yet the VAR official has gone. You've got that one wrong. It's offside. How can you tell from there? When you're looking at this, and I'm going to have it up on the screen now. When you're looking at this, you cannot tell who's in front of who. So how can you give it? And yet they've done it. They've gone, yep. Rather than saying at this point, and it's this exact same with this one, which I don't see how they've looked at that and thought that line was straight. Surely they've seen that line is not straight. Perhaps they've intentionally done it that way because they're like, oh well, he looks onside here, so we're going to have to make him offside. I don't get how you can look at any of these decisions and say with absolute certainty. This one perhaps a bit more clear cut, but you can see it's just his arm that's offside. Perhaps more so with the Norwich one than the other ones. The camera's 10-15 yards in front. How can you tell anything from 10-15 yards in front? You can't see who's level and who's in front of who. Now, for me, I would say that Pukki's onside. And the point of offside is it's supposed to be you're either one or the other. How is everybody just about seeing that is offside, seeing that is onside even, and the VAR official has thought, nope, he's offside. If offsides are supposed to be black and white, you're on or you're off, then surely it should be obvious. And for me, if you're gonna say to a linesman, keep your flag down, give the advantage to the striker if you can't tell. Surely you say the same to the VAR officials, and you say if you can't tell and you have to draw the lines, if you can't tell from the naked eye, then just give it onside. Because when you're given decisions like these, it's ruined the game, and so many times it's happened against Norwich, not just with offside. We've had a red card overturned against us, which I think that's the only red card that they've overturned this year, which, in my opinion... So, the point of VAR was clear and obvious, and in my opinion, that Sheffield United red card, I thought it is one which, if it's given as a yellow, I'm fine with that. If it's given as a red, I'm fine with that. Because, at the end of the day, it wasn't clear and obviously not a yellow, but it wasn't clear and obviously not a red. So, is one of them fine, like, in the middle ones where... And the frustrating thing about that one, they slowed it down so you couldn't see the force he was using. And they looked at it from one angle and spent like a minute looking at it, rather than looking at it from different angles and seeing where's the contact, seeing where everything is. If they're going to make us wait, I don't care about the waiting. That's not what bothers me. It's the fact that I do not trust them to get these decisions right. There's somebody in Stockley Park who's just sat there looking at it without getting a feeling for the atmosphere, and it's not even so much about the atmosphere. Obviously, it's black and it's white. It's either a red or it's a yellow in the cases that they have to overturn. But he's looked at that, he's slowed it right down, he's looked at it from one angle, and he's gone, nope, you got it wrong, it's a yellow. Now, in my opinion, if a Norwich player did that, and they got sent off for it, I wouldn't be complaining. And yet, Sheffield United players done it, got given a red card, rightly by the referee. Now, if they said to the referee, go and look at the pitch side monitor, you make the decision, I would be fine with him overturning it. But for them just to sit there and then go, yeah, no, you got it wrong. To me, it just takes them. It absolutely is just ridiculous. The fact that somebody who's not even at the game can sit there behind a screen, make a decision, and then go, yeah, that's final. It's ruining, and it's always the big teams that get the decisions. When Norwich were against Arsenal, they had a penalty where they pushed Zimmerman, and then Zimmerman's arms went up, which you do when you're going for a header. it happens all the time. A player goes for a header, they get pushed, and then their arms come up. And the same thing happened. Now, if that happened in the middle of the pitch, that's probably given as a push. But because it's a penalty, they've looked at that and they've gone, it's an opportunity to give Arsenal a penalty. So they've given Arsenal a penalty. And then VAR, rather than looking at it and going, no, actually there was a push, VAR's gone, yep, ball hit the hand, it's a penalty. What use is so they're overturning the right decisions and turning them into wrong decisions, but then they're not willing to overturn the wrong decisions and turn them into right decisions. And that's the frustrating thing for me. If I felt comfortable that they was going to get the right decisions, I would have no issue with VAR. But on the plus side, at least if Norwich do get relegated this season, which is looking likely, because let's face it, even though we've got plenty of quality, there's been some games where we've shown plenty of quality, we just haven't got the job done. And then there's other games like this one, there's games like the Arsenal one, where we should have won that one. That right there, if it wasn't for VAR, that would have been 4 points. And also, how can a referee cost a team on Boxing Day and then be VAR official for that team 2 days later? Because Chris Kavanagh, he was referee, I believe, for Norwich versus Aston Villa. He gave a throw-in to Aston Villa, which they then went up the other end and scored from, even though it was actually supposed to be our throw-in. That's an important point to make. It was supposed to be our throw-in, because it came off an Aston Villa player. He gave Aston Villa the throw-in, and then they went up the other end and they scored from it. He then 2 days later was the VAR official for Norwich and Tottenham. And he did the same thing there. So he in 3 days has cost us 3 points. There's been other games, and I will make this point. I'm not just going to sit here and be like, oh, it's VAR, it's VAR. There's been other games where, like even with the Villa game, we should have defended that better. But if we get the throw in, they don't get the goal. Wolves, we were just not able to get the job done. Sheffield United, we weren't able to get the job done. We were 2-1 down by the time there was that red card, so you can't even really blame it on that. There's still 20 minutes left, but who else was there? Leicester, the 1-1 draw, we just weren't able to get the 3 points. So it's not... And I know, obviously, every team has been the subject of one of these calls, but that doesn't make it okay. Like, it's just the right thing to carry on without changing. They need to change it up. And for me, there's several changes that I would make. Number one, they need to clarify, clear and obvious. Unless it is a stonewall yellow card, they cannot be overturning red cards. Unless it is, unless it proves that there was a dive or there was no contact. In the case of the Sheffield United one, there was contact. It was excessive. For me, it was a red card / a yellow card. Like if they gave it as a yellow card, I would not mind. If they gave it as a red card, I would not mind. But it wasn't clear and obvious enough for them to overturn it. They need to think about who's initiating the contact. So in the case of the Dan James penalty against Norwich, and I'm just using Norwich as examples here, Dan James initiated the contact, then went down, and yet he won the penalty. Despite the fact that the referee actually got that one spot on. The referee got that one right. And he didn't give a penalty. And then VAR steps in, gives the penalty. And for me, that can't be allowed to happen. If the player's going to initiate the contact and then not be strong enough in the contact and then go down, play on. He's just not strong enough. It wasn't a foul. It wasn't a foul at all. So that's the first thing that they need to do. They need to make sure it's clear and obvious. They also need to make sure that the referees have the final say. So they tell the referee, unless it is one which is absolutely, like, if the referee misses an absolute 2-footed lunge where he goes flying in at the opposition, then they give it. If it's anything other than that, say for example, with the Sheffield United one, if they was to say to the referee, go over, look at your monitor, you make the final call, I would be fine with that. And then if the referee had then decided to rescind the red card and turn it into a yellow, I can't complain. I would sit there and I'd be like, okay, well obviously the referee thinks he's got that one wrong. But to have somebody just sat there going, yeah, no, you got this one right, you got this one wrong, Nah, not for me. I'm not a fan of that. If they was, and also with offside calls, if it's so close that from the naked eye, and for one thing, they need to make sure that they pick the exact moment where the ball leaves the player's foot. Even if that means they need more high-tech cameras with a better frame rate, which means that they can actually pick the exact moment where the ball leaves the foot. I don't know whether it's whether the player makes contact with the ball or the ball leaves the foot, but whichever way it is, unless they can make absolutely sure of that, then they need to stop using it. Either stop using it for the close offside calls, or they need to just get better frame rate cameras. And for me, if it's so close where you physically cannot tell from looking at the naked eye, like the Team Pukki one, like the Wilfried Zaha one, and like the Dan Burn one. I don't actually know who it was who was offside in that one, because that was apparently a few phases of play before. But if it's that close, just give the advantage to the striker. If you're going to tell the linesman, keep your flag down, then you have to do the same thing with VAR. It has to be consistent. You can't tell the linesman one thing and then say to VAR something else. If you're going to say to the linesman, flag down, advantage to the striker, you can't then say to VAR, give the advantage to the defender. Because these are such close calls, you physically cannot see who's in front of who. For me, this one, it looks like he's actually level, because you can only play the ball off the shoulder. So I'm talking about the Brighton one. You can play the ball off the shoulder, and you can see the Bournemouth defender's shoulder is here. You go across, this bit here, which is supposed to be playing him offside, is his arm. You cannot play the ball off your arm, you can play the ball off your shoulder. And yet this has been disallowed by millimetres. In fact, maybe even nanometers. I think for me that's level. I think the Crystal Palace one is level. I don't even know if they've got the lines right on this one. VAR needs to go, or they need to improve it. I would be happy to see it go. I've stuck by it. Well, I did originally stick by it. I'm done with it now. I can't be bothered. It's the only thing that's ever made me not want to go to football anymore. When I was, since I was a kid, I've always wanted to go to football, and now I'm here and I'm like, we've got Crystal Palace on Wednesday. Do I even bother going? Answer is probably no, because I probably will end up going. I've been to every match this season, every home match. I don't think I'm going to stop going just yet, but hopefully we will be fine. Hopefully we'll be fine going into next season, and they will hopefully sort VAR out. They will have it so that the pitch side monitors are used. Hopefully they do that this season. I would be happy for them to do it this season. I don't mind seeing the referee go across and take a look, as long as they're going to get it right. That was the most important thing for me. I would happily sit there 5 minutes each decision. I know obviously other people don't want to, but I would happily sit there 5 minutes each decision, where they go across and they take a look, and they get it right. But obviously that's not going to happen. The other change I would make as well is I would give referees microphones, or the ability to switch their microphones so that the people in the stadium can hear. Because right now we're sat there, we don't have a clue what's going on. If they was to do like what I said earlier, and they was to say, I'm checking this, I've given it this way, I'm checking it, that would be so much better. That would be so much more convenient for everybody in the stadium. And right now, the lifeblood of football is the fans. We're the ones we pay the money, we keep the clubs going, and yet we're the ones being mistreated for it, and it's awful. But I suppose when you got your money making business of Sky TV, that's what happens. Imagine if there was no atmosphere at any stadium, if there was no fans went and there was no atmosphere in the stadium, what would happen? Sky would pull out, BT would pull out, because it's not worth going and showing the games anymore. They would just be like, well, what's the point? Premier League would be dead. There would be no money in the Premier League. Clubs would lose their 100 and whatever million pounds, and yet we're the ones who's being mistreated, despite the fact that without us, there's no football. But never mind. So I'm going to leave the video there. Let me know what you think of VAR and how you would fix it, because for me personally, I've said what I would do. I've covered the I think 4 things maybe that I would do to change it. It needs to be changed. It needs to be implemented much better. In other leagues they can do it, so why can't they do it here? It's just pathetic, and it's costing us, because at the end of the day, all you've done is you've given incompetent referees the ability to be incompetent in the name of objectivity, and they're making subjective calls and being like, yep, no, this is 100% offside, when they're manipulating things to make it look that way. You can always find a camera angle that would make a red card look like not a red card. You can always find a particular line that would make an offside onside or an onside offside. You can always do that. And yet they've managed to find a way to do it. They've managed to find a way to basically break football. But anyway, I will see you guys in the next video. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and in the meantime, until the next video, I will see you then.